Nobody would take a $70,000 sport utility off-road, would they? That's this week on Motoring 98.
TSN's Motoring 98 is brought to you by Quaker State. The big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will. And Midas Car Care, the way it should be.
This is the latest sport utility from General Motors. They're calling it the Denali. It's really an upscale Yukon. We'll tell you more about that later on. Hello everybody and welcome to Motoring 98. Now I know I've said it so many times before, but I just can't believe the thousands and thousands of dollars that are spent on vehicles like this for a technology most owners never use. And of course that is the ability to go off-road. But then again, people that live in houses like this probably very seldom pack up the tent, the wieners and the cold beer to go for a weekend of 4x4ing. But having said that, our first story is about some owners of a luxury sport utility that really want to give their vehicle the opportunity to strut its stuff.
Okay, I want you to creep it on the brakes through the moguls here. When you're through these moguls and it starts to level out, you're going to hit that soft sand. It's feet off everything. Okay, if you feel the back begin to break away at all, it's foot on the gas pedal. You accelerate through it.
Right.
Okay, you'll make it.
Thank you. These sport utility drivers have never taken their vehicles off-road, and when they did, there were all kinds of obstacles in the way. Land Rover Canada is hoping this off-road education day will help new drivers get over their first bump.
We have 15 vehicles here. We're generally with 2 people per vehicle. These are mostly owners who've recently purchased a Land Rover product, and we have them off-road for a day to teach them off-roading techniques and how to get the best out of their vehicles. These are genuine off-road vehicles. They're built as off-road vehicles first and foremost, then refined for the road, where most other sport utilities are a road vehicle. We encourage our people to make the full use of these vehicles, but to do that they really need to understand the vehicle and how to handle it properly. Okay, brakes off, away you go. We have a varied terrain out here, mostly sand-based, so it's non-damaging to the vehicles. It generally dries quickly, but we do have the ability to get into some mud if we need it. We have trails through the woods, which are nice and tight, and generally make them very aware of the dimensions of their vehicle as well.
One of the things we have to do is to stop looking a kilometre down the road, which is where the action is going to be in a short time, driving at 100 kilometres an hour, to what is actually disappearing right underneath our hood. What we want to do here is to teach people the very basics of off-road driving so that they can take their vehicles into off-road situations and drive safely without damaging themselves, their vehicles or the environment.
Run down that one there.
One of the big differences between driving on and off-road is that you can use the engine as a brake, which means that on things like steep hills you can use the engine to brake rather than using the brakes themselves, which can lead you into various sorts of problems. One of the misconceptions, of course, with off-road driving is that you drive in as low gear as possible with your foot hard down. The secret, in fact, is to drive in as higher gear as possible, so you reduce the torque and you're much less likely to go into wheel spin.
Frankly, I think some of them are perhaps a little braver than they are wise. I mean, you go off-roading in a $90,000+ vehicle, and you do a ding. When it goes crunch, it's usually a very expensive crunch. But having said that, you've got to respect them for what they are doing. I mean, they want to learn more about their vehicle, how it handles, how capable it is. And you look at a Land Rover, or the Range Rover indeed, that thing is just unbelievable in this environment. One of the things that you have to bear in mind is people are jumping into this market big time. Mercedes-Benz, Lexus and all the rest of them. And neither of them have taken the step forward to try and then educate their owners. So for Land Rover to do something like this, hey, thumbs up. absolutely incredible. It is amazing.
Well, it's a grand experience to get your car off the 401 and start to learn what it can do. Because the car can do an awful lot more than the driver can, is what I found.
So Henry, tell me what happened.
Well, I was trying this typical slope, and I guess I need more experience. I got into the descent there.
I think they'll get you out, no problem.
Yeah. Well, this is part of the fun, right?
The response is tremendous. They really get very enthusiastic about the problem. You just see the look of glee on their face when they've accomplished something which they thought was totally impossible.
Now go. That's it. Stop. Stop.
Hey, good stuff. Yeah, there's no doubt Land Rover's been king of the hill for a long time. Can they stay on top, though? Find out later on Kenzie's Corner. You know, for the longest while, the Chevrolet Corvette was the epitome of everything that was wrong with the North American automobile industry. Generally speaking, the concept was brilliant, but the execution lacking. Well, that was until this vehicle. This is the all-new C5 Corvette.
Not only is the new body better to look at, it is also considerably larger. The wheelbase is up by almost 8.5 inches, while the front track has grown almost 3.5 inches. This larger footprint gives the new car a considerably better balance.
You know, at the launch of this vehicle, GM engineers took great pride in telling us that this car is 4.5 times stiffer than the one it replaces. Well, that of course begged an obvious question. Is this one really good, or is the other one like a wet noodle? The answer, they told us, somewhere in the middle. What makes this thing so strong is two things. First of all, there's a full perimeter frame. But more importantly, this now has a true backbone. Up front, you've got the engine. In back here, you've got the transmission and differential. Linking the two is a solid connection. That's what makes the difference.
Power comes from the latest in a long line of small block V8s. No multiple cams or valves here, just a straightforward all-aluminum pushrod V8 that delivers a prodigious 345 horsepower and 350 pounds-feet of torque. Anywhere from idle to redline, this engine delivers, especially if you put the coals to it. Matched with this marvellous motor is a slick shifting 6-speed manual. The ratios are well spaced and the clutch is not overly heavy.
What would life be without a pet peeve? On the Corvette, GM still force you to go from first to fourth if you're not standing on the gas pedal. It's done to satisfy the government and for fuel economy. Well, not only should the government stay out of the darn bedroom, they should stay out of this Corvette.
To keep all this horsepower in check, there is an active handling system that controls both the engine and brakes. Now, you can turn it off, but you do so at your own peril.
The C5 Vet comes with a choice of 3 suspension systems. Now, each one uses double wishbone and it is fully independent. The base suspension, well, it's on the soft side. The high end, well, it's firm enough to rattle your fillings loose. Between the two, you have a $2,200 option which delivers active damping. Now, it's got 3 modes. If you're out poodling around town, you pick the touring mode. However, if you're out for a thrash, make sure you pick performance. You know, GM have excelled on the interior design. First of all, you've got a real dash. No more cheap video look to this thing. The radio sits above the climate controls and all the secondary controls, well, they're ideally placed. The last thing, if you go with a stick shift, you actually get a parking brake in a position where you can now do a proper hill start. The trunk on the new Corvette is far more user-friendly than the previous model. Gone is that horrendous liftover. It's now quite civilized, and the space that's there, they've done away with the need for a spare tire and a jack because this vehicle gets extended mobility tires.
Stopping power comes from a 4-wheel disc brake setup that comes with the latest Bosch ABS 5. Suffice it to say that it is flawless, delivering a crisp pedal and short stops.
The transformation of the Corvette is now complete. GM have taken a car that I wouldn't have thanked you for a couple of years ago and turned it into one that I could legitimately use to go and pick up milk.
In the process of the transformation, they've gone from rude and crude to sleek and highly sophisticated. It's time to update you on our long-term Intrigue. Now, in the past, Brad's extolled the virtues of this vehicle on long-distance drives. Well, I can tell you from first-hand experience, it's equally at home in an environment like this, dropping the kids off at the local playground. Thus far, it's been fairly uneventful. That said, on the way home the other night, I lost the headlights. Quick trip to the dealer, they installed a headlight switch, and now everything is hunky-dory. On our next update, we'll bring you up to speed with the numbers we've generated thus far.
Chrysler displayed its newest technology concept vehicle at this year's North American Auto Show. It's called the Dodge Intrepid ESX2. Chrysler says it combines unique lightweight body technology with a new diesel-electric hybrid powertrain. It can achieve 70 miles per gallon. The thermoplastic body is 100% recyclable. It all sounds great, but do consumers really want a vehicle like this?
It's an interesting question, and it's frankly hard to answer. Certainly right now customers want power, they want comfort, they want convenience, they want it all, and they're certainly buying the biggest engines they can get. Some of them complain about the fuel economy that they get, but they still buy the bigger engines. Our challenge is to try to provide improved fuel economy and still provide the performance, still provide the comfort and function that they've come to expect. This is a diesel-electric hybrid, which is becoming a fairly popular sort of concept in this arena. What is special about this one, there's several features. One is the body is injection molded composite, which is very lightweight and very low cost. We pioneered this with our so-called CCV concept, which is a car originally intended for the third world, but it was an experiment in injection molding very large pieces and then assembling the body out of those. And that allows us to lower the weight and the cost.
Is the straight electric car a thing of the past now?
We think there's a very limited application for a pure electric. It requires so many batteries, so much storage on board for very modest range. It is so compromised in cold weather or slushy road conditions, the range just drops off dramatically, that absent of just a tremendous leap forward in batteries, we see that the potential for pure electrics to be very limited, maybe as just little city commuters and that kind of thing.
Our Midas tip of the week concerns rim leaks. If you're having a problem with underinflated tires and you can't find a puncture in your tire, there's a real good chance that you've got a leak around the rim. Now, if it's a late model vehicle with aluminum alloy wheels like this one, there's a darn good chance you've got a lot of corrosion built up in this rim flange area. It's a very common problem. You can see it on this rim here. This roughness and chalky looking corrosion that's all around this area here is destroying that seal that's necessary between the rim flange and the bead of the tire on any tubeless tire. Now, what you've got to do in order to remedy that situation is demount the tires from the rims and clean up that corrosion. Now, you can see on this tire that I've used rubber buffer in this area right here to clean off that corrosion, but around the rest of the tire you can see that chalky kind of dust that is formed in that area, and that's affecting our seal there, causing air leakage. You've got to completely remove that, and in addition, you've got to sand down that corrosion that's on the rim flange. We've done this rim, the one off the other side of the same car, and you can see what we've done is sand it down and repaint that area in order to make it nice and smooth. Now we can get a proper seal. Now, if we're reinstalling an old tire that's very rough around the bead, it may in some cases also be necessary to apply some sealant compound to this area in order to effect that proper seal. In any case, if you're trying to live with this situation, I suggest that you get it remedied. You're certainly shortening the life of a set of tires, you're wasting fuel running on underinflated tires, and you may be compromising your own safety if those tires are drastically underinflated. That's your Midas tip of the week.
A portion of Motoring 98 is brought to you by the Solder Seal Gunk family of automotive products, makers of Puncture Seal Gold and Liquid Wrench.
Things were much simpler then, and our measuring techniques were simple. We could only measure 6 things at one time. A year and a half later, we could measure 20 things. Things like the forces in the head and then the chest and the vehicle decelerations. Our first barrier cost $15,000. A barrier today costs $4 million, just to to have vehicles hit it. So things have changed.
Every other manufacturer is building or rebadging a sport utility as luxury. So why not General Motors? The Yukon, although getting long in the tooth, now has a luxury sibling with the 1999 Denali. Yukon owners will notice a new grille, upgraded wheels, not to mention new leather, some extra wood, and a 6-speaker sound system. Under the hood, as in the Yukon, sits the Vortec 5.7 V8 with 255 horsepower and 330 pounds-feet of torque. As for the name, it comes from the tallest mountain in North America, the Denali Mountain, found in Alaska, 20,320 feet. You know, I've always liked the Yukon because it has what a lot of other sport utilities don't have, and that's some luggage space. You get the same space in the Denali model, except it's going to cost you about an extra 10,000 bucks. All right, now let's head to the garage. Join Bill Gardner. Robin, I'm over here. We're rolling again. Tell you, these mechanics. But I know one mechanic who wouldn't be caught dead with a poster like that in his garage, and that, of course, is our resident mechanic on Motoring 92, Bill Gardner.
Yeah, you're right, Brad. I wouldn't be caught dead with one of those posters around my shop. Oh, well, I don't count this one because, I mean, spring tune-up, car repair shop, I thought that was appropriate. Anyhow, what we want to talk about this week is how you as an automotive consumer or motorist can better interface with those people that fix your car. Guys like me, service advisors, secretaries, managers, all these people that are links in the chain between you and you ultimately getting your car fixed properly. And there's a lot of things that can and will go wrong. So it would be very helpful if you just gave us some help up front. It's very easy for you to do things. Now, what I find at my shop is a lot of times customers come in and they hand you a couple of loose keys like this. They're not tagged, easy to lose. You might drop them in the snow, sit them down somewhere else. We've got 20 or 30 cars out there for work. We don't know which keys are for what. We waste time like crazy doing this. So make sure that they're on tags, properly identified. The second thing is make sure you've got yourself a good list made to leave with the car. This should be on top of the dash where a guy with dirty hands like me can come along and read it through the windshield. I want your name, your phone numbers at work, a description of the car, make, model, and year. The serial number would be very helpful if you could print that out as well, because then we'll pick that little piece of paper up, walk to the phone to order our parts. We also want a brief printed description of the problems. The symptoms only, not what you think's wrong with the car, because when you start telling me that you think the timing is out, or the carburetor's gone, or the muffler's leaking, or something like this, I don't know if you really know what a car acts like when it's got those problems. So just keep it short and sweet, describe the problem only. I'll road test the car and I'll decide what's wrong with it, and I'll grab your piece of paper and I'll add to, I'll make a list of the results that I find from my road test. Car pulls heavily to the left under braking, wanders to the right when I'm driving, things like this. And this will all help me out when I get inside and look at the car. It's the old saying, proof of the pudding is in the eating. So I will determine that. The other thing to remember is be prepared to leave your car in for a little bit longer than you may have before, because cars are very complex. We may not be able to get the parts easily. So this in at 8, out by 4 stuff is getting more and more difficult every year. So allow us a bit of time. We'll do a better job for you. And help us with these little things. If you want babysitting at 40 or 50 bucks an hour, we'll do all this, but you'll save yourself a lot of money and time if you help us out. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 92.
Earlier in the show, we saw a lot of people having a lot of fun in Land Rovers. The question is, are people at head office in Land Rover having quite as much fun? It wasn't too many years ago that Land Rover was the luxury sport utility segment. There was nobody else there. But now you've got $50,000 Explorers, you've got $60,000 Expeditions, $70,000 Navigators, you got $80,000 Lexuses, and next year Cadillac's going to have a sport utility. Now, I don't think much of these things, but the market has spoken. There's a lot of action up there. The question is, can Land Rover compete? Well, BMW bought that company a few years ago because they knew Mercedes-Benz was developing their own car, the M-Class. BMW figured it'd be a lot easier to buy the best-known name in the business rather than trying to develop their own truck. But now they've got a problem. how do they get this truck up to date? I mean, the Land Rover is still using engines that date back to a General Motors V8 from 1963. Well, BMW's under no illusions. They know they're going to have to build trucks to compete with things like the Grand Cherokee. And we all know that competition is what drives this particular business, so all I can say is, let the best truck win. I'm Jim Kenzie.
It's not unusual to see a big crowd at Restaurant Au Parmesan in Quebec City, but today was unlike any other day. The restaurant features a room dedicated to the memory of Gilles Villeneuve, and today he was being honored 16 years after his death while practicing for the Belgian Grand Prix.
Et vive le grand champion, Gilles Villeneuve.
Quebec City has got a story with Gilles Villeneuve because he won here in 1977 his first Formula Atlantic Championship. That was a Canadian championship because at that time we had a Grand Prix in Quebec City. Though we decided with the Parmesan owner, which is a very, very well-known restaurant in Quebec, we decided to have a bust of Gilles Villeneuve that was unveiled today, and it will be here in Quebec City for the years to come.
We had it made in Italy, especially in bronze, and we honor Gilles Villeneuve today because he was a great champion, and now his son is going to be maybe even better than him. But anyway, for us, he's a great champion, you know.
An event like this, you know, brings back memories where you realize that this guy accomplished so much to be able to have an event 16 years after, and having all the excitement around it, you know. So Jacques is doing very well, but Gilles is still remembered really, really well.
We want to congratulate Louis and César for ensuring that the name Gilles Villeneuve will live forever here in Quebec City. Well, the formal part of the presentation is over, but now the real fun begins as everybody gets to sit down to some fine Italian cooking. But wouldn't you know it, we got to hit the road. But we'll see you next week as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
It's racing, it's racetrack, that's Ferrari. And we had the pasta, we had the Italian sachets, we have the espresso machine, so it's all Ferrari.
TSN's Motoring 98 has been brought to you by Quaker State. The big Q stands for quality, always has, always will. And Midas Car Care, the way it should be.